Hi, this is Meg from Permacoach, and this is episode 3 in our series on how to make these beautiful braided rugs. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to get your rug started. So I'm going to show you how to start your rug, and I'm going to do the same thing that I do when I'm joining in, which is to cut a curve to the top of the tape. And about a finger's width down, I put a little nick. You don't want that to be too close to the top of the tape, otherwise there's a risk that the whole thing rips open. And remember that with poly cotton, you only need a little tiny nick because that hole is going to open up. So you want it just big enough, not too big. And then all I'm going to do is to thread my other piece of tape through that little hole. And what I'm trying to do is to create a plait where I have 3 different lengths of fabric. You could also use 3 different strands and join them in the middle, but I find that this is neater because I haven't got 3 things trying to bunch up in the center. The reason I want the 3 different lengths is because that way when I join in, the little knots where I join in will all be at different locations. They won't be one on top of each other, which can give you a bit of a bump in the rug. Now I'm perfectly fine just working this with my hands. There's this little flap at the top, which it's a good idea to roll that under when you're starting so that it doesn't stick out. And then you're just going to plait the way you would plait a little girl's hair. Or a little boy's hair, anybody's hair. So 1, 2. So as you can see, I have no difficulty plaiting and holding on to that. And if you've had lots of experience with plaiting, you'll probably be the same. So I'm trying to get this long enough. The idea is to get a plait that I can curl around on itself and then start joining in. If you can't get a plait started just holding it using that method, the easiest thing to do is to pin it to something like a cushion or an ironing board will work just as well, and secure it to something else with pins. And you probably need a couple of pins because you're putting a little bit of pressure on it. And then exactly the same method, you're just going to plait that. You'll need to start fairly gently because they're just going to lift out otherwise. So just go 1, 2, 3. So you can see it's the same process. You're just going to plait. But as I said, I preferred to just hold it in my hand, and I'll show you that again. So roll that. I don't really want to see that lining side. That's just a personal preference. There's nothing wrong with it. You might like that look. So I'm holding it here and going over, under, over, under. And you'll see my left hand is really just serving as a kind of a scaffold to hold it, and my right hand is doing the plaiting. If you are left-handed, that looks like this. So over, under, over, under. So exactly the same thing with your left hand. So now you need to think about which direction you would like to turn your rug. And it's not really a left or a right-handed thing. As you can see, I'm somewhat ambidextrous. So, but I know people who are left and right-handed, and there doesn't seem to be any rule about which direction they work. So try both, see if you like one more than the other. Now, the idea is I'm going to form a circle. So I need enough of a plait to start with to be able to bring it around on itself and loop through. So I've done, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's feeling about right to curl that around. And I'm going to bring the next tape through the middle. And that's the point at which we started. It's coming right back through that center point. you can see there's the little pink one where we threaded it on, and then bring this edge around gently, and then we're going to go over and under. Now I want to keep coming around, and that's not ready to be woven in yet, so I'm going to do another plait over and under just to bring that around a little bit more. You don't want to do too much of that. I'll show you what happens if you do over, under, over, under. You know, that makes it really easy to bring it around, but the risk is you might end up with a bit of a hole in the rug. That's not a problem. You can just put a few stitches in there, and sometimes, you know, it might look like that's a lot, but then as you'll see when I pull through, it sits quite well. So even though I've done a couple of rounds of the plait, the thing with this is have some fun with it, experiment with it, and you know, it's free fabric, it's easy to unpick and redo. You just keep playing with it until you get a shape that you're really happy with. The idea is to get a circle, because the shape that you make at the center of your rug will have a huge impact on the final look of your rug. So if this bit is wrong, or not wrong but misshapen, then the rug will be that shape, whatever shape you start with, because it's going to get bigger and bigger. So have a bit of fun with it, don't be too precious with it. So now I'm at the stage with this, I'm just going to move that pillow away because I don't need it. You can see that's coming around really nicely. I'm not at a full circle yet, but I've reached the point where I need to add in my first piece of fabric. So here's the method for adding in. A little tip here, the tip here is the longer the pieces are that you use to start the center, the easier it is to start the center. So if you've got a couple of really nice long bits, that means you can work that center piece without having to add in. And that's the disadvantage of threading it through, is that, as you can see, I've pretty quickly come up against a knot. But that's okay, it doesn't bother me. But if you're just starting out, you might want to find, you know, some really nice long pieces of tape so that you can work a few rounds before you need to do this. Now, ideally right sides together. Push the top one through the bottom one, just as far as the little notch that you've made, and then feed his tail back through that. And I'm just going to ease that down, pull his little skirt down. There we go. And you can see that forms a nice neat join. Now, often what happens after you've joined in is you feel like you've lost your place. So come back to where you were and remember, and this is where I like to keep this one sitting up. It helps me find my place. So I'm looking at that, I've just pulled that through. That's not ready to go back in. So I'm going to do another couple of rounds of plaiting. Let's go 1, maybe 2. And curl it back in, and that looks ready to go through that one there. And we're just going to pull that through. And that's starting to make a really nice looking circle. Let's go again. 1, 2. And I'm going to show you how I use my crochet hook. It doesn't matter if you don't use a crochet hook, I just like a crochet hook. My finger's securing it so I'm not bunching it up, and I'm pulling my tape through like that. Here we go again. 1 plait, 2, curl that around. Where does it want to go? So if you think about, this is the one we're joining in, think about who is it pointing to? It's pointing to that one. And 1 and 2. going to that one. See how it's, so we're going to go through there. And then I'm always looking back over the work and flattening it out and checking it and making sure that I'm happy with how it's sitting. So this is going really well. It's sitting nice and flat. I'm going to go 1, 2. Now this is the only place I do 2. Everywhere else I do 1. But in the middle, when you're getting it started, you need to do 2 rounds of plaiting so that you've got something to bring around. And now we're ready to join in again. So cut my little curve. Little nick about a finger's width down and get another piece of tape. Now you can see when I've cut my tape previously, some of these were shorter lengths. So I joined them in earlier. That does mean you've got a knot to pull through, but it does save me a bit of time, the fact that these are a bit longer. That's about, you know, this is, I guess, about a metre, a little bit over a metre. You don't want to go much longer than that because you spend an awful lot of time pulling tape through. But as I say, you know, figure out what works well for you. This is just my method. You might find that you would rather have much longer tape and take the time to bring it through. I prefer to work in lengths of about a metre. So here's this method again. The front, I call the front the side that's on top of the curl, or in the case of this fabric, that's clearly the front of the fabric. Put your fronts together. So I think of them kissing each other. Have a kiss. Put this through here and feed the tail of your tape back through the little mouth and go gently because you don't want to tear everything. So easing it down, easing that little skirt down and pulling it through. When you get to there, you can be a bit firmer because that'll give you a nice, neat, firm knot. And now back to the plait. I look like I've lost the plait, but I know this one on this side is the next one. And we go over and we go under. And I realise I've just joined it onto the pink one when I meant to join it onto the blue one. So let's do another join in. Nice bright pink piece. So we do a curve on the top, about a finger's width down, just a tiny nick. That would need to be a bigger hole if it was not stretch fabric. Have a look at which way it's curling. That's its front. This is the front of this one. A little kiss. Put him through the hole. And just get that little head through and then bring the tape over and feed it through. So again, I like to line these up so that my curls are all facing the same way, but it doesn't matter. You can just pull stuff through and have it face. So you can see once I've finished this, I ease that down and I pull it tight. What happens is this is curling that way and this is also curling that way. So they're both, so that's the back and that's the front. So they're both lined up if you join them using that method. But you know, there's nothing wrong with the look of that or the look of that. So if you just want to thread them through and not worry too much, you can do that too. So we keep plaiting and we go 1 over, 1 under, and park that one up there. And I'm thinking I still need to do a second one. That's just not, I'm just not comfortable pulling that round that far. So let's go 1 and 2. Park that one up the top. And now that one's coming around nicely to my next loop. and still sitting flat. So essentially what I'm doing, you know, if you do knitting or crochet, is I'm increasing on the outside edge. So pull that around so it's sitting nice and flat. And then we're going to go over and under that one. And you see what I mean about a long tail? Things can get a little bit complicated. Pull that one up and park him up there and bring that one back. And now, see what's happened? So now we're at the stage where when I pull this one, it's pointing to a loop. Instead of being pointing down here somewhere, if I lay it on its natural line, it's ready to go into the hole. So from here on in, I'm only doing a single plait and then looping in. So we're going to go over that one, under that one, park that one up there. That one's pointing to here, so we can loop him through. And then we're going to go over that one, under that one, and I like to cover the knot by spreading that piece of tape out and holding my finger on it. And then I'm going to pull this one through. It's actually going through, it looks like it wants to go through the same loop that I just came through, so I'm going to do that. So from here on in, it's a single plait. It's one plait loop through, one plait loop through, and that's your pattern for the rest of the rug. The only place that you're doing two plaits and then looping through is here in the center, and you need to do that in order to bring the plait around far enough to make this circle in the middle. So you can see this one's starting to look a little bit sort of squarish. That's fine. It's very forgiving, this method. It's easy and forgiving. It's part of why I like it. It's very easy to do, not a complex method at all. And as I say to people all the time, if you can plait hair, you can make a braided rug. So over, under, move that one up. You can see this is the one we're putting through. It's pointing to that one. So that's the one it's going through. Oops, that one's a little bunched up. Don't worry about it. Just find your hole. Finger down to secure it. And pull it through. And I'm always looking back going, how's it looking? How's that sitting? Is it sitting nicely? You can tuck little bits, you know, you see a little edge like that you're not happy with. It's easy enough to just roll that under and tuck it in. And I'm also looking at the center and going, you know, like that's a bigger hole than I'm normally happy with. But all I need to do is just put a couple of stitches in the middle there and sorted. So very forgiving, as I say. Or you can just leave the hole. It's up to you. In the overall context of a big rug, that little hole's going to disappear. I just like to finish them off neatly. So over, under, that one goes up. So this one again is looking like it wants to go back through the same hole. Now when you do that, make sure you come under the one that's already there. You don't want to come up here, it's going to confuse your plait. So you're always heading your plait towards you. So you can see that's two coming through the same loop. And we go over and under that one, and that one goes up like that. And we just keep working our way around. And that's how you start your rug. So this bit, it takes a bit of time. It can be a little bit fiddly, but as I said, it's very forgiving. If you're not happy, and I'm not happy with that hole, I'm going to unpick that and redo it so that it's nice and tight because I'd rather do that. You can stitch, but my concern with stitching is stitching can pull and come undone. So I will probably go back to the beginning and start again. So feel free to do the same and enjoy making your braided rug.